Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, I am going to be discussing last night's game between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, this was a pretty fun game. It was close throughout, and then in the fourth quarter, the Bucks went on a run, and the Cavs stopped making their shots, so the Bucks were able to come away with a 123 to 105 victory. But this game was really quite a bit closer than the final score would indicate. A large reason for that was that the Bucks shot very poorly from beyond the arc, going just 7 for 22 from three-point range, which equates to 31.8%, which is a significant downgrade from where the Bucks have been throughout this season. But I have to give a lot of props to the Cavs. They never stopped fighting in this game, and a lot of their young players looked quite good. I was especially impressed with Colin Sexton, Isaac Okoro, and Jarrett Allen, and I think that those three players have a chance to be some really solid building blocks for this Cleveland Cavaliers team moving forward. Let's start by talking about Sexton, as he has been far and away the breakout player for this Cavs team so far this year. I have always been a fan of his because I think that any type of player who can average 20 plus points per game in the NBA in just their second season is a very good player. But this year, Sexton has brought his game to another level by improving his playmaking, becoming a somewhat respectable defender, and also becoming a more efficient scorer. In this game, I really liked what I saw from him. He didn't have his best game of the year by any stretch, putting up 19 points on 7 for 17 shooting, but he did show a few really good flashes of being that high-level scorer that he has been for the Cavs so far this season. He really stood out in transition, in which he was able to use his speed and strength in order to get to the rim and finish over the Milwaukee defender. He looked pretty good in pick and roll, where he was able to generate some space and get into the mid-range, where he seems to have developed a very nice floater shot. And he also knocked down a three-point look from beyond the arc off of the dribble. I think that Sexton is a player with a very balanced offensive game, and that very much bodes well for him in his future NBA career. He's probably a player that is going to make an All-Star game at some point in his career, and perhaps even this season. So that's definitely someone that the Cavs need to look to keep around for the long term, and he's probably the strongest piece of this rebuild that they have so far. A close second in that category for me, though, is their rookie Isaac Okoro. Now, Okoro is not quite the scorer that Sexton is. He did do a few really nice things in this game, finishing with 10 points on 4 for 8 shooting. He knocked down 2 of his 5 3-point attempts, which was a bit of a question for Okoro coming into this season and his career as a whole. But he did knock down a shot off of the dribble and a really difficult contested shot from the corner. And that's definitely a good sign for him. There were also 2 spots where he was able to create a shot for himself off of the bounce, getting inside the paint and getting into the mid-range, where he appears to be quite comfortable rising up and knocking down a look off of the dribble. Okoro is also fantastic defensively, and he did a really nice job in spurts of time guarding the 2 Milwaukee All-Stars in Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton. I think this guy is going to be very valuable for this Cavs team moving forward, and I definitely liked what I saw from him today. Moving on to the third most important piece of this Cavaliers team moving forward in my mind, and that has to be Jarrett Allen. Allen is a very intriguing player, and tonight he did made one play in particular that made him even more exciting for me moving forward. He made a 3. Now, this was his first made 3 of the season. I'm not sure if that was a development he had added to his game last year, but if this guy can space out his game and become a floor-spacing big man along with what he already can do as a rim runner and rim protector on the other end, that is a very valuable big man, and there's a very real chance that he could iron himself out into being a top 5 center in the NBA at some point in his career. And that's really off of the strength of the defense. I said before that he is a very good rim protector, but just glossing it over like that is not doing him due diligence. Yes, he's a good shot blocker. Today, he had 2 blocks, and both of them were pretty emphatic rejections of dunk attempts by Milwaukee players. One was Pat Connaughton, and the other Giannis Antetokounmpo, I believe. But he just has such a bigger impact than just the block shots. Every single shot that's taken by an opposing player, it seems that he is contesting. He's all over the court. He's able to deflect shots and use his length to his advantage. And he's also a plus defender one-on-one against opposing big guys. Jarrett Allen is the real deal. And I think that as a franchise starting center, he can really help this Cavaliers team out. So you've got your 3 guys in Sexton, Okoro, and Allen. You have some other interesting young players like Darius Garland. However, with Garland, I think that his skill set overlaps a little bit too much with Collin Sexton's. He is a small guard who can't really take on difficult matchups defensively and is more of a score-first guy, although that piece of stigma around him has changed a little bit as he has improved as a playmaker so far. But mostly because of the defense stuff, I'm not sure that this backcourt, no matter how fun the Sexland nickname is something that they're going to be able to keep around long term. Darius is the guy that I would look to move off of, and if they could move him for a very high quality 3-and-D wing type player who would be able to pair very nicely with Okoro on the defensive end and with Sexton on the offensive end as a floor spacer, I think that that would be a deal that would be very intriguing to me if I were the Cavs, and would be something that I would look to get done. So that's kind of my opinion on the Cavs' young core. I also think that if Dylan Windler continues to develop, he has a chance to be a very nice 3-and-D guy. He has to improve on the D and get stronger, but if he can do that, he's already a good enough shooter that he can really help this team. So I like the Cavs, and I'm excited to see what they continue to do as they grow their core. I probably spent a little bit more time talking about them than I was planning on, but we still have some time left in this video to touch on the Bucks. And this was a very interesting game and a very good win for them, in my opinion, because they were still able to win despite struggling to hit their shots from downtown. In the first half, Chris Middleton really kept them in the game. He finished the game with just 15 points on 6 for 11 shooting, but 13 of those 15 came in the first half, and I'd say a pretty good chunk of those came during a long stretch in the second quarter where Middleton was really the only source of offense that the Bucks had. He's the reason why this game was as close as it was at halftime, and he kept the Bucks within striking distance so that once Giannis got going in the second half, they were able to overtake the Cavaliers and get some space in the fourth quarter. And Giannis did take over in the second half. It was one of the better halves of basketball that he has played all season. He finished with 33 points and 12 rebounds on 13 for 25 shooting. Also posted his second straight game of shooting 75% plus from the free throw line as he was 6 for 8 tonight. And with Giannis, today he was just playing very, very aggressively. He would not take no for an answer. He was very crafty once he got into the low post. What's interesting with Giannis is that when he is getting post-up opportunities, it's not necessarily off of an entry pass. It's more so off of when he drives to the rack and is able to get some solid positioning. He's able to use an assortment of spin moves and drop steps in order to get himself a solid look at the bucket. So today he was doing that quite frequently. He was using all of his crafty moves in the post to his advantage, and it's a large reason why he was able to have a monster second half for this Bucks team. And I would be remiss if I didn't touch on the effort that he brings defensively. I think that with Giannis, this is probably something that gets glossed over far more than it should, but he remains one of the elite defensive players in this game. He plays so hard on that end and is able to use his length and strength to his advantage. I think that a play that sums up what Giannis can do as a defensive player occurred into the fourth quarter of today's game. There was a time where Collin Sexton was driving to the lane. Giannis got his hand in and poked the ball away. It went over to Jarrett Allen on the opposite block. Allen went up for a dunk. that appeared would be easy for him, but Giannis came over and emphatically rejected it. The ball ended up in Colin Sexton's hands once again. Sexton tried to put up a floater, and Giannis came out of nowhere to pick up his second block of the possession. That just really sums up what kind of impact he's able to have because of his effort and gifts on the defensive end of the floor. And it's the reason why this Bucks team is eventually going to improve on their defensive rating. So far this season, they have been in the bottom half of the league in that statistic. And that's something that a lot of people have taken pretty hard. But when you have the excellent individual defenders that the Bucks do, such as Jrue Holiday and Giannis and Brook Lopez, eventually that unit is going to figure out and end up being in the top half of the league. That's not something that I'm particularly worried about. Another thing that really stood out to me in this game for the Bucks was that Mike Budenholzer switched up his rotation a little bit. My dad pointed out to me that instead of Jrue Holiday being the first Bucks starter to the bench, today it was Dante DiVincenzo. And there was a stretch in the second quarter in which Dante was playing alone without Jrue Holiday or DJ Augustin on the court. That's been a look that Mike Budenholzer has been a little shy to go to so far this season. But I thought that Dante looked really good in his time as a primary ball handler. He ran a few pick and rolls with Giannis in which he made some really nice reads and found Giannis for wide open looks under the basket. He also knocked down a three-point shot from essentially the Cavaliers logo in which he looked very comfortable pulling up when the defender went under the screen. This is something I'd like to see Budenholzer try out a bit more often, especially with DJ Augustin's struggles so far this season in manufacturing offense. Perhaps a more on-ball oriented role could help Dante snap out of his personal slump so far this year, and it'd be something I would keep my eye on if I were a Bucks fan. So as I am a Bucks fan, I will be keeping my eye on that. Finally, Jrue Holiday had a really nice game for the Bucks. He finished with 17 points and 7 assists, shooting a very efficient 8 for 9 from the field. He didn't do anything that stood out too much, but just his ability to be a consistent source of offense for a Milwaukee team that at times struggles to generate easy shots in the paint is very valuable. And he is such a crafty player inside that it's very fun to watch him play. Last but not least, I want to point out that Mike Budenholzer is not as bad of a coach as a lot of people say. And in this case, I want to talk about his sideline inbounds plays. It seems like every single time there is an end of the quarter play where Budenholzer has time to draw something up, the Bucks end up coming away with a bucket. Now, this doesn't always happen at the end of the fourth quarter, which is why he receives some criticism for this particular aspect of coaching, but at the end of the second quarter today, he drew up a play in which Jrue Holiday had a very easy lane to the rim. Holiday ended up getting fouled, and the Bucks had to take the ball out on the sideline again. And Middleton ended up throwing a very nice lob pass to Holiday in which he was able to finish very easily at the rim. Budenholzer is a pretty solid coach at drawing up plays. There's areas where he needs to improve, but he has tried to make more adjustments so far this season, and I'm still putting a lot of faith in Mike Budenholzer. I know I've been critical of him in the past, but he's here to stay, so we might as well give him a solid chance. Let me know what you thought of this game in the comments section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. That's going to be it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you all again very soon.